So what are the benefits to CrossFit? Obviously, we talked about this in your own life.
Definitely the community piece, finding like-minded people is so important. I think obviously as we get older, like strength training is so important for our overall health and for our muscles and bones and just to have greater well-being. And it's that mental switch which I think then can be applied to different areas of your life. And I'm still working on that mental switch. I think sometimes it will take a bit of time for me to switch, but I know that I can, and I know the benefits of doing it. And like we spoke about, again, it's reframing or reusing that energy for good, which is, I think, the biggest challenge but opportunity of doing this kind of training.
Hi, EnvisionAirs. Welcome to the EnvisionAir Podcast. This is the podcast where we envision living our best lives by exploring everyday topics related to health, wealth, and community. On today's episode, we will be exploring the topic of health, specifically how CrossFit helped Cailtin Robbins on her mental health journey. Although Cailtin has been involved in sports her whole life, it wasn't until she started competing in CrossFit a couple of years ago that she found it helped her to significantly overcome some mental health issues she had been facing. And starting with CrossFit competitively, she has remained disciplined and committed to improving her mental and physical well-being, and recently competed in her first HYROX competition in Amsterdam and placed number 2 in the Women's Open 25 to 29 category. Well done, Cailtin. That's amazing. Cailtin is a committed champion for those facing mental health and well-being issues, particularly in the workplace, and she recently graduated with a master's degree in workplace health and well-being. So, as many of us are resetting our well-being goals and habits in the new year, I'm super excited that Cailtin Robbins has agreed to be on the EnvisionAir Podcast to share with us how CrossFit helped save her mental health and improve her overall well-being, and how we can start today with our own CrossFit journey, even a CrossFit light journey. And this is a very special episode because Cailtin and I did a CrossFit workout together, which we filmed and we will be showing at various parts during this episode. So for anyone listening, if you want to check out the workout in action, please go to the YouTube channel and let us know what you think. It was honestly one of the most challenging workouts I've done, not only because it was a great workout, but also because I probably haven't pushed myself to that intensity in probably pre-COVID, lockdown, but I was able to take it at my own pace, and Cailtin was so lovely and patient. And so we have a big shout out to George Edwards, who's the hybrid coach, who was Caitlin's coach, and he put together this awesome CrossFit workout for beginners, which we'll be sharing today. So stay tuned, watch the whole episode, and we're very excited to share that with you. So Cailtin, welcome to the EnvisionAir Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you. I mean, gosh, number 2, that's amazing. So incredible. Tell us a little bit about, before we dive into that, how was that? I mean, what is HYROX for people who don't know what it is? What is that?
So HYROX is probably one of the fastest growing endurance races. And for anybody who is interested in CrossFit and wants to sort of dip their toe in and explore what it's like, it's a really great race to give a go because it's open to all abilities. It's very trainable. You know what exercises are coming up. They're always the same exercises. And it's a great way to kind of get, a benchmark of where you are in your fitness. And that fitness is so broad because it's your strength, it's your endurance. But as we'll come on to talk about, that journey that you go on whilst you're doing a HYROX is so much more than the actual physical event. There's all the training beforehand. There's all the time that you're actually at the race and you're sort of, with your thoughts and working through those. And so I think all in all, it's just a fantastic experience for anyone to have to give a go.
Amazing. Cool. All right. Well, Cailtin, why don't we start with a bit about you and your path into CrossFit?
Yes, of course. So I've always loved sport. I think as a kid, that was sort of, where I'd spend my time when I was little. Always wanted to be outside and just kind of was very fortunate to kind of live in an area where I could kind of go outside and run. And I found that when I started to run more, I found that actually it was really beneficial for my mental health from a young age. At school, I had dyslexia, and it was probably at a time when dyslexia was sort of a little bit sort of a taboo. And so as far as I knew, I just wasn't clever. That's kind of how I perceived it. I was just being held back in various different kind of classes and science and things. But I found that exercise was a place where it was more like a level playing field, where I could be myself and it didn't really matter. And it was sort of, a chance for me to kind of feel that I was improving on a different level versus from like an academic level. So really found that outlet super, super helpful. And then fast forward to when there's more research into like dyslexia and I get diagnosed with it. And then I start to find that actually from an academic standpoint, it unlocked so much additional support. And that was really beneficial to me to feel like actually people understand what I'm going through. It means that actually it's just a different way of thinking. And as I started to look, like kind of research into it, you've got various different entrepreneurs like Richard Branson, people that think differently and have, I guess, used it as a sort of advantage to kind of get what they want. And so I guess that kind of way of thinking and kind of having exercise as a way to kind of channel the frustration that came from the other side of it was a really kind of nice way for me to start to manage at a young age my emotions. And I don't think I've been obviously preparing for this and thinking about my past and doing that. And I think it was quite an intuitive thing. I think, at a young age, I didn't realize that was my sort of outlet and that was my coping mechanism. But I think it became a habit over time. Yeah. And so it allowed, as I got older and as the stress, of course, got sort of even bigger, whether that's you've got higher pressure exams or you've got, various different obstacles and work that you have to kind of navigate, knowing and sort of, feeling that there's actually something that I can confide in and that time that I have when I'm exercising is really, really beneficial. So that sort of led me on this journey to always prioritizing fitness in some capacity. And I think the biggest thing that fitness also gives you is a sense of community. So you meet similar minded people who want to better themselves, people, I think it takes a special kind of person, especially this time of year, to get up early, it's dark and to sort of want to go. And yeah, you're going to feel so good after, but there's always that moment of, oh, should I actually go? And I could just stay in bed. But over time, like I was saying, those habits, if you do it once, it comes a little bit easier. So I think the sense of community has been brilliant through fitness. And I found that before I sort of went to the HYROX route, F45 was such a brilliant sort of, I guess, stepping stone to really appreciate like the power of bringing a gym community to a local town. And so the town that sort of I was a studio manager of the F45 in Teddington, and we worked really hard to sort of bring that gym and kind of make it very much for and with the community. So whether that's working with sports clubs and schools and getting, young kids doing fitness as well. But you really started to see like friendships being built and like, the stories of people who kind of come in to that gym environment, and it's just 45 minutes, but they don't have their phones. They don't have to think. They're just sort of in the zone doing the workout. And when they come out of that, they're able to go back in and, deal with their children and their stressful jobs. So that was brilliant. And I really feel like I learned a lot through that experience. I was a member in that capacity of F45 for quite a long time, almost like 5-6 years. So then getting to work and sort of finding that actually I really want to sort of follow my passion and be more aligned to that was brilliant. And I think like in terms of learning from people, so like very fortunate to learn from brilliant personal trainers and just so call that up, because I think there's so much to learn and to know about fitness. You can only really scratch the surface, but you can understand sort of what works for you. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is you don't really have to be an expert in everything, but it's moving your body in a way that you enjoy. And I think that will make it more likely that you stick to it and you try things.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to it, so let's say mentioned as you're in childhood, you started running and you found the benefit of that. And that's amazing. And then when you were getting involved in different sports, growing up in your adolescence and even as a young adult, was it mostly team sports or was it like this sort of gym-based classes that you work together and you meet people that way?
It was a bit of a mixture, yeah. So like I'd always do sort of cross-country running, which was sort of just me against me. But then in addition to that, like at school, I would do like netball and rounders and, really get involved in those kind of team-based environments. But I guess really welcoming the chance to compete and kind of, you know, starting to, I guess, come to terms with the pressures that brought, and this idea of resilience, because you don't always win and you don't always perform as well as you hoped you would, all whilst, I guess, navigating adolescence and I guess the challenges that brings, you know, like there's so much, I guess, in society at a young age. You're you know, social media is such a big thing, so you're kind of comparing yourself to what other people might look like or what other people are doing, and you're not taught maybe as much as you should be about actually how to deal with all of this information that you're being bombarded with. You think it actually doesn't affect you, but I think it does have an effect. And you know, I think as a young girl in that capacity, you know, I think I did get a bit caught up in that sort of comparison circle, and I guess that's where in my adolescence my mental health struggles kind of started, I think.
Yeah. So on that point about social media and the mental health, so the idea of the comparison, what were the struggles with that specifically? Like, just how did you deal with that? How did you deal with, because I grew up, I think I'm about 7 years older than you. So I think I was just like, Facebook had come out when I was at university. So I did not I missed that in that in that sort of high school, those high school days. I missed the social media, thankfully. So I'm curious to know how it was for you.
Yeah, so I think we've come so far with social media. Like, I do think now that it can be a channel for good, because it can be used, I guess, as quite a way to be authentic and as like a way to kind of shed the light on some of these difficulties, which I think earlier on in our adolescence, there wasn't enough, I guess, exposure to. So, you know, from a fitness and nutrition standpoint, like, I just remember being bombarded with like quick fixes and this idea that, you know, there was a one size fits all of what beauty sort of was. And I think, you know, that's the kind of the cycle that I got caught up in, of kind of being, well, I don't look like them, or, you know, I want this quick fix to kind of look a certain way, and not having the tools and knowledge to kind of really think about actually something way more holistic, and kind of thinking more about health and thinking about strength and thinking about, like, actually, you know, my mental well-being. It was so much more on the kind of aesthetic side of fitness. So, and that just came from, I guess, I didn't know any different. I was just naive. And I think I've come to meet some fascinating athletes who perform at an elite level. There's always a story, and there's always kind of a pain and a struggle that they've been through that has allowed them to kind of get to where they are.
Yeah.
And so I do look back at all this, and I do feel grateful that I kind of went through it and kind of, you know, came to realize that actually some of that pain will later down the line help fuel my success and kind of where I want to get to. But obviously back then I didn't see that, and I was, I guess, more vulnerable to those influences than I probably realized and wanted to admit.
Yeah.
And it spiraled. And so that's kind of the first, I was about 16, 17. And I kind of, even though I was into running and things, I also, I think maybe just comfort ate quite a lot. That was kind of my, I guess, other coping mechanism for various different stresses going on. And so I think you know, obviously nowadays you understand how to fuel, and we'll talk about this in a moment about, you know, the importance of fuel, but you know, that dichotomy, I now know how to make it work so that both sides of the coin are fine. But back then I didn't, and so I was getting frustrated because I thought that by running I could eat what I wanted. And anyway, so unfortunately, like, I got caught up in this cycle of just then wanting to, I guess, look like my peers and kind of not feeling very comfortable in my own skin. I think I lost the control that I thought I had on the situation. So it sort of spiraled very quickly, kind of lost weight quite rapidly. All the denial that kind of comes along with it, and kind of not wanting to admit that I was probably, you know, not in a very healthy state. But I kind of have always been quite a headstrong person, so I'd kind of set myself this goal of, you know, where I wanted to look, what I wanted to look like, or the weight I wanted to get down to. But the problem is unfortunately, when I got there, I didn't stop, or I didn't get that fulfillment that I think I thought I'd have.
Yeah.
So it sort of escalated to the point of me being hospitalized, actually. When I was at school. So I think I still was in denial at that point. I kind of went into that assessment with the doctor and had all my tests done. And I knew I hadn't eaten enough before that appointment. But I guess I still was sort of, telling myself it's going to be okay and it's just a routine appointment. But because of my age and my vulnerability of that situation, I sort of had the choice taken away from me. And it was sort of within my interest that I stay in hospital. And so I think for my parents, that was really, really challenging because, I think everyone suddenly realized actually how bad this has got, and the fact that I need to be under supervision because of the concern, because my blood pressure was so low, my heart rate was slowing down.
Wow.
But I guess there was a massive disconnect between my mental health and I guess what I thought I perceived and how I thought I looked like, and the actual kind of physical health. I thought I had this good, I guess, healthy balance between mental and physical. I really didn't. There was a big disconnect there that I think later down in my journey to where I am now, I've really had to learn to sort of cement a lot better.
Yes, absolutely. And how thank you so much for sharing that. I had no idea. I didn't know about the hospitalization. And so how long were you in hospital for?
So I was in hospital for about 2-3 months, and it was really tough, because I was 15, 16. So like all my friends were at school, and like obviously, all those emotions of like feeling left out, and obviously for somebody who's always been quite active to be bedridden and kind of, to have my independence taken away from me and to be out of academia and, to feel like unsure about what I was doing next, like all these emotions were really adding to things. It's challenging because when you're in that sort of, I guess, threshold of kind of concern in the NHS environment, the biggest thing that they want to help you with is to get weight back on. Okay. And they offer you help psychologically, but I guess it's a little bit pointless because your brain is so kind of starved that you're sort of not really making sense, and you're so much in denial still that it sort of feels a little bit like futile. So the main priority was get the weight back on, get her sort of back into school, and then we can sort of like reassess things. This is like really open for me because I think like my friends and things obviously like know about it, but I think we were all quite young, and so I don't think people actually know the ins and outs of what it was like. And it was over 10 years ago now, so for me it's quite
something that's gone. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've overcome it, obviously. 100%. And I mean, it's all these struggles that we all have. And I mean, when I look at my adolescence, I also had that sort of like, I've been always like up and down with my weight. And it's like the first time I lost a lot of weight I wouldn't say quickly, but very seriously. And I was very committed to it. I was about 13, 14. And because I was a competitive swimmer and I'd always been used before that. And I'd always been used to like eating whatever I want, this and that. And then you hit puberty, and then, I started gaining weight, and then, and there's a fine line when you're really trying to prioritize your health and look a certain way, let's say, right? And let's say that's a driving factor. There's a very fine line between like healthy habits, right? And I think at the time when I started, I mean, in retrospect, it probably wasn't as bad because like now we know that like a lot of refined carbs are not good and refined sugar is not good, but I cut all of that out. And this was about 20 years ago. It was like before it was a mainstream thing to say low carb, high protein, and my family was very concerned about, because I lost about maybe like 40 pounds within like 3 months. Like it was drastic. I actually think it was like, anyway, so I totally understand that sort of, there's a fine line, and there was a very strong sort of not intervention, but my mom and my sister were definitely like, you could have an eating disorder. Like what's happening? And it's this whole, anyway, so I totally understand that. And I appreciate you being so open with us and sharing that. But you've overcome it. You have now, I mean, that's been 10 years now. And then also like how have the last, let's say 5 years been, and in kind of your entry into the competitive CrossFit journey? Because I know there was also some things going on in the lead up to that. And so can you tell us a little bit about that? And how did you discover CrossFit competitively? Yeah,
definitely. So I think like my story kind of prior to kind of competing competitively, like kind of made me who I am. And I think it it reminded me that if I want to do something and like I really sort of give my all, like I can achieve it. And, you know, unfortunately, not everybody does sort of get over some of the things that I went through at a young age. And so I feel like it takes a lot of resilience to have got there. So 100%. I guess before we started recording this, somebody talking about like the clear nose for when it comes to certain things that they will or won't do, because they know that if they're training and, you know, going out drinking the night before, for example, is not going to be beneficial to them and to their mental health, things like that. Yes. I have those as well, but I also have clear yeses. And so I also know, having been through that experience, what I need to do to make sure that I'm kind of sticking true to who I am. And because I am someone who wants to better themselves, and because because I'm always, I guess, wanting to take on another challenge, I've got to make sure that I'm doing something that's going to be beneficial to myself and not detrimental, if that makes sense.
I love that. Yes, it makes
sense. And just using that energy for good versus taking me down a rabbit hole of self-destruction and just like rechanneling it. So I guess for a while it's been, so what does that look like? And kind of, you know, work, it was kind of one area that played in, and then kind of figuring out again, how do you channel that energy and passion so you don't get burnt out? But then again, fitness, I kind of then found that actually I needed to reignite that flame, but I guess in a different capacity. So I guess I got really inspired by looking at some of these athletes who compete at a HYROX or a CrossFit event, and the narrative being so much about performance and not about weight and not about what you look like. It's about like, how do you get the best out of your body and get the best result for you and only for you. And I just got super, super inspired by that. And I guess the stories of people who take on these races, whether it's for themselves or for, you know, various different people that they want to sort of represent. And so decided to give it a go myself. And the first time I did HYROX, I mean, it probably does count, but to me, it feels like it didn't count because it was a late call up and somebody was like, you know, do you want to sort of give it a go? And I gave it a go, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And my friends came, and it was funny because I'm probably, out of my like very close friendship group, like I'm probably like the fitness fanatic, and you know, they'll come and support me, but you know, everyone at the venue was in gym gear apart from my crew, who like turned up in like jeans and jackets, and I was like, oh my god, they're like really like not blending in. And they came with a good luck balloon, which was really sweet, but got confiscated.
Oh no, really?
They were like,
wow.
No, Okay. I was like, guys, try and like blend in. But just knowing they were there was great, because I think, you know, I had no idea what I was getting myself in for. Like, I've always had a good level of fitness, but you know, when you're essentially HYROX is 8 stations, everything from rowers to ski ergs to you have wall balls, you have, you know, farmer's carry with weights, you have a sled pull, a sled push.
Wow.
But between each station, you're running 1K. And I think people underestimate that, because you're basically going into each station fatigued. And that's what I really found in the first race. Like, I was so shocked by, I was like, I could do these exercises, but then to go and run and then to come back was a whole different ball game.
Right.
So I got I think a 1:21 time. Like, I was fine with that. I was like, do you know what, for the first time, it's kind of good to see where I'm at. Mm-hmm. But obviously, if you want to podium, if you want to kind of be up there, you need to bring that down drastically.
Like how much?
So for women's, I was doing open at the time. So there's open is kind of, open to all abilities, but you sort of want a sub 110 really, if you're going to have a chance of getting on the podium. And 10 minutes in HYROX world is a lot. So I found that actually when we were doing our workout, I spoke to you about Simon, who I met from F45 Teddington. Yes. He was a member there, and he was a catalyst in me sort of, I guess, wanting to take HYROX more seriously. He sort of
shout out to Simon.
Shout out to Simon. We love Simon. But he's so knowledgeable. Like, he is always so clued up in the HYROX world, and he, I guess, inspired me to want to actually to give it a go. And he was like, why don't we just see what we could achieve? Like, if we actually followed a structured plan and we actually took training seriously and we actually kept each other accountable. And we loved F45, but it was the workouts we had known and we had done for kind of a couple years now. We wanted to change. We wanted to take something on, and HYROX seemed like the best solution. And so we found ourselves in a 6-month period just really, I guess, religiously meeting 2-3 times a week. Any weather, we would be running outside. Sometimes we'd take like 10 kg weighted vests, which honestly, like, you felt so cool when you were wearing them, but we did get some funny looks. And we say, right, we'll go for Nando's after, but let's like do this workout together. We'd simulate the race. So we would do a full race and we would like get all the stations out. We'd time each other.
Wow.
There were times when, I remember one time I like physically fell over because I just didn't see a ramp when I was running.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like to Simon, I'm fine, let's just carry on. And he's like, your leg is bleeding. Like, we need to go get, you need to go get stitches. I was like,
gosh, your commitment, Cailtin. Wow. You're so disciplined. That's amazing.
I can't believe it. So, he was lovely. He took me to hospital and I did need stitches. So I'm glad I went, but it became, I guess, a bit of a running joke between us because I was like, you've been there when I've actually fallen, and I guess also metaphorically.
Yeah. And you got back up. So there you go. Yeah.
There we go.
Well,
yeah. But when you're spending so much time together, like, you end up, it becomes so much more than, it's like, how are you feeling today? And what's going on in your life? And you've shown up today, and so we're going to work through that, and how can I help you? And
it's amazing.
All the emotions, like the frustration, right? Like, there'll be some days when you feel like you're not making progress, and it's so easy at those times to kind of give up or throw the towel in. Again, that comparison, it can seep back in. It's a lot of people are sharing on socials how they're training for HYROX, and you're like, I'm not lifting that, I'm not running at that speed. And I guess with the clear nose that we spoke about, it's okay, snap out of that comparison thinking, like, stay in your lane, which is so much easier said than done, but it's so true, because it's your race, it's how you perform, and all you can control is what you can bring, and only you can do your best. Like, I had no idea going into the race in Amsterdam who else was going to be there. All I could do was kind of race to my best ability, and I really hoped that I would get a great result, and it would kind of, I felt like I'd trained hard enough for it. I felt like I deserved it. But, you never know on the day. The sleds, you pull them on carpet. And so it feels so much heavier than it actually is. And all the race courses are different across the world. So some, when you're running, you having to like dodge through people, all these little things which can cost you time. But it was worth it in the end for kind of the result that I got.
100%. Well done, you. Number 2, like, that's awesome.
Thank you.
And so what would you say then, how has CrossFit saved your mental health? If you could kind of put it into words.
Yeah, so I think CrossFit is so broad. I think it encompasses endurance, strength, flexibility, but it's all functional movements which are going to help you in everyday life, whether that's, from physically carrying shopping, but also mentally when it comes to navigating things going wrong, when it comes to taking on life's challenges. And I think when I spoke about earlier in my childhood, the disconnect between physical and mental, CrossFit, I guess, was the first chance for me to try and marry those two sides up. And that's kind of the biggest thing that it's been able to give me, because there's no escaping the kind of commitment and, I guess, training that needs to go in. But I think you can channel that into everything that you want to achieve in different areas of your life. And I think that's been the biggest gift that CrossFit has given me, is that I know that I'm going to show up. I know that I'm going to give it my best. And when I do have moments of self-doubt, I look back and I'm like, but actually I did that workout. Actually, I did show up. Like, actually, I did lift that. And I think it's that kind of ability to sort of reflect and kind of see it from a physical sense, but then be able to channel it from a mental state as well.
Love it. Amazing. Very good. Well, that's a great segue into actually talking about CrossFit. And so I remember probably about 10, 15 years ago, it felt like I was still living in Ottawa at the time in Canada. And I remember just hearing like CrossFit was like so mainstream, and it felt like everyone, but mostly a lot of men, I'm going to say, were doing CrossFit. And I was so intrigued by it, but I was also like slightly like, oh, I'm not fit enough to do it because I have to be like ultra fit and so on. And so can you just tell us a little bit about CrossFit? You have already, but maybe just more kind of high level, what it is. And is there like a uniform way of training? And, what are different fitness levels that can get involved in CrossFit?
Yeah, of course. So I completely understand. Like, I think CrossFit has a reputation for being quite intimidating. I agree. Like, usually there's a lot of guys. I mean, it's the same in like the weights area. Like, I always put it on my stories on Instagram. I'm like, shock, only girl in here. And I think that when you do feel a little bit different, it kind of makes you feel a bit nervous. But and these gym environments in a CrossFit scenario, they don't have much equipment in, which is also a bit intimidating because there's like all this like space, and it's like, well, what do I do with it? And all these bars and things. I guess for CrossFit, it's very skill based, and to learn a skill means to focus in on a few movements and to kind of give dedicated time, which I think is so beneficial because when you're doing exercise classes or you're following a program, you might not get that kind of specialist attention on these different skills, whether that's things for flexibility, whether that's on like actual functional movements. I do think it's open to all abilities, and I do think that there's different avenues in. So you can go and join a CrossFit class, which is a great way to meet like-minded people, and they'll put you in a group, and usually similar to what we sort of did in our session, it'll be a circuit and it's like you go, I go. So it's like, let's complete this together. We'll kind of set a pace that we can all do, and they'll show you the exercises, which usually will be around kind of similar to what we did. There'll be definitely be a token burpee for sure.
Oh no, I'm just joking.
You were acing those. I just really enjoyed our workout. I was like, you know what, like we've done like there's how many did we have to do? There was so many. Was it like 50 or something? Or
it was a lot.
It was 30 meters of burpees, and I was like, do you know what, we could just do 10. And you're like, no, we're gonna do 30. Let's go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it can be quite inclusive, and I think it's growing so quickly because it's HIIT training. You get that adrenaline rush. You feel like you don't have to work for hours. You can go in, do a 20-30 minute star workout, and you get so much out of it. And so for the modern day person who's juggling work and family, it's a brilliant way to kind of meet like-minded people, but also to kind of get that fitness and kind of that, I guess, endorphin rush.
Absolutely. And sorry, when you said, is it a star workout you said? What did you say?
So you can do a 20 to 30 minute like HIIT workout. So like a high intense workout.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Because I was going to say, because I know with us, when we did our session, there was a proposal to do the circuit like times 3. Yeah. We actually, only full disclosure, we only managed to do 1 because I was like, I think that's enough. It was a lot. Yeah. And I think for me, like, and so that, if I was doing it by myself now, and I will say, I actually feel more confident having done it with you, I could do it on my own, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But I think like that would probably, let's say, take 20 to 30 minutes. Is that a rough sort of like, if you do it one sort of circuit time, that it should take about 20 to 30 minutes? Or is that too long? Like how long is a normal CrossFit workout? That's like when you do it, how long does it normally take you?
So I think it depends on what the workout is. So like a lot of these exercises that we were doing, it was entry level, but they're new exercises, right? Like, wall balls and things, they're quite technical, like we were talking about the fact that you haven't run in a while. So I think it's very much like a guide, and what my coach will do is sort of say, let's give this a go, and you tell me how you felt, and then we'll adapt. So when I started working with him, he gave me some running splits, and I was like, I can't hit them. And I think, again, I was like, does that mean I'm not good enough? And he's like, no. Like, we just need to figure out like, what's feasible for you, like, where you are in your journey. Like I'd also taken some time off since Amsterdam. So it's kind of, I guess, what we would have done with this plan is, bring it back down to one round is brilliant. Like, let's start with that and let's just get that quicker before we keep adding more. Let's and let's kind of see what George would do is like have a look at the times for each exercise. And if your ski is the slowest, then let's focus on that and let's like get your speed up on that. So it's super, super data driven, which is cool. And you can get a lot of insights out of it. But it's always that sort of with CrossFit, I find like they'll say 2 or 3 rounds and you'll look at all the exercises and it can be a bit overwhelming or like, how am I going to get through that? But then at the same time, if they don't set that challenge, you then don't feel like you're being at least pushed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you also like, they obviously think you're capable, which is also good. So it's trying to get that balance.
Yeah. Interesting. So interesting. Right. And so what are the benefits to CrossFit? Obviously we talked about this in your own life, the discipline, the overcoming the kind of mental challenges or barriers, let's say the limiting beliefs, not only during your workout, but also probably by osmosis in your life. Are there any other benefits to CrossFit that you want to share?
Yeah, so I think definitely the community piece. So I think, that the finding like-minded people is so important. And just knowing that you've got people who don't think it's crazy, but also sort of want to kind of share this with you. I think that's really key. I think obviously as we get older, like strength training is so important for overall health and for our muscles and bones and just to have like, greater well-being. Like we sit down. So, people talk about the sitting being the new smoking. And so I think having something that kind of gets your heart like racing and gets your body moving and gets you sort of a new physical mindset and space is really key as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think is the biggest challenge since you started competing in CrossFit that you've had to overcome, and how did you overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge I found was being patient with the journey. It's not going to happen overnight. So, that time deficit that I was looking to make with the 10-minute deficit that I was hoping to create in HYROX, I wasn't getting it at the start. Like I was doing these simulations and like we obviously were timing to the best of our ability. So in HYROX, there's it's called the rock zone. So there's an area when you're running between the stations to get back out to the running track, which feeds into your overall time. And so it's one of the things that people get told, like, don't walk because, that could be time that is wasted that adds to your time. So we were trying to recreate this rock zone by like adding an extra lap around the car park and we never quite really knew if it was the right thing, but I was always falling, I guess, a bit further out of the time that I was aiming for. I remember sort of finishing the simulation and being like, I've done it this time. I think I've got my 110 or kind of 109 that I was aiming for. And I remember Simon being like to me, just fallen short. And I just burst out crying. I think it was just like this sort of like all this emotion kind of came to head. And I was just like, I really, really wanted it. And I think it is in those moments that challenge like comes to a head, because it is so easy to be like, I'm not going to, I'm not doing it anymore. Like, it's not worth it. Like, I'm putting in all this effort. I'm not getting the results I want. But you do have, I guess, that chance to then switch it. And then that kind of be like okay, I'm going to fight again. I'm going to try again. I'm going to get my head down. I'm going to like talk to my nutritionist and see what else I can do there. I'm going to look back at the data. And it's that mental switch, which I think then can be applied to different areas of your life. And I'm still working on that mental switch. I think like sometimes it will take a bit of time for me to switch, but I know that I can, and I know the benefits of doing it. And like we spoke about, again, it's reframing or reusing that energy for good, which is, I think, the biggest challenge but opportunity of doing this kind of training. And I think the other challenge is you spend a lot of time with your thoughts because you're running kilometers all the time to kind of get your running up, and you're with your headspace. And one of the things that I was dealing with prior to Amsterdam HYROX was a breakup that I was going through from like a long-term relationship. I think it was time to really process that whilst I was kind of, I guess, practicing and training for HYROX, because, all those sort of moments of, wondering, okay, who am I, like, as a girlfriend, as a, as a sister, like, as who is Cailtin, and, who do I want to be? And also I think it's hard when the person that I was with in that last relationship, like they were my best friend. And so like I wanted to like take them on this journey with me of being like, oh, you know, guess what I've done today? Like, or actually today was a really tough day in my training.
Yes.
And not having that support bubble was tough. But then you come to realize actually you can do it for yourself and you don't need somebody else. And, you know, it's really important that you have that self-love. And I think I had started to lose touch a little bit of that in that relationship. So it was a real time to kind of nurture and figure that out again, which was great. But yeah, then I have a lot of respect for, I guess, professional athletes or people who do sport at, you know, any level really, because, you know, it is that mindset and that tenacity, which I find quite contagious really. And I know that I'm always wanting to improve on. So yeah, I think for anyone that's going through some challenges in life, it's worth doing something for yourself that's going to better yourself and is going to help you to, I guess, actually like move like on in all senses, like, you know, move on stronger physically, mentally.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I mean, those challenges, the way you were able to turn a challenge into an opportunity, that is the ethos of the podcast. And so I love that. And thank you so much for sharing that. And I feel like you have found Cailtin, who Cailtin is now. Do you think?
I think so, definitely. Yeah. Which is, it makes me quite emotional actually, because a lot of time and I guess work has gone into figuring out who you are. And I always think about that like inner child and like, you know, what would she be saying? And, you know, there's something so, I guess, simple and naive about this inner child that, you know, all she wanted to do was just to run and to be outside and just to kind of, you know, be in nature. And along the way, all this sort of, I think about a rucksack with all these sort of, you know, building blocks and heavy things going into it. And she got laden down. And so she was running slower. But actually, the only person that could take the rucksack off was me. And kind of, you know,
yeah. Gosh, that is so emotional.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. So I've really tried to, I guess, in taking the rucksack off, you know, actually also not just take it off, but actually open it and address what's in it. And I still, you know, it's going to be an ongoing battle, like for life, I'm sure, like for everyone, you know, you have ups, downs you can't control, but knowing that I have these tools of like emotional resilience is really good, I think, for me to now know.
That's incredible. That is the best gift you've given yourself. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So for any beginners who are listening and they're like, yes, Cailtin, I want to start my CrossFit journey today. Let's talk through the workout that they could start today. And I think we're going to go through the workout that George had actually put together for us. So do you want to talk us through what we did and we can kind of run through that together?
Yeah, definitely. Before we did our workout, we had some pre-workout, which Darryl, shout out to Darryl.
Shout out to Darryl. Thank you, Darryl.
So Darryl is an incredible nutritionist that I work with, and I know that he works with a lot of CrossFitters and anyone that really wants to sort of understand how to fuel themselves and how to like unlock their potential. And that's exactly, I guess, what I was hoping to do. And I guess from that, turning the switch of, you know, fuel being something which is a superpower and is needed versus something that I was depriving myself of. And I wanted to kind of give you a flavor of what that could entail. So, you know, yes, we had caffeine, but we also had various different minerals. And in there as well, we had some electrolytes because we're going to be sweating and we want to make sure that we're rebalancing our salts. And then we also had some creatine in there. And I know that a lot of women get quite nervous about taking creatine.
Yeah.
I think there's this myth that you're going to sort of be bloated or, you know, and I think what I found is it's really beneficial from an endurance standpoint. So it really helps you from, you know, whether that's lifting weights heavier or you do feel like you have more energy in the tank, whether that's a slight placebo, I'm not sure, but I have found the benefits. So wanted you to try that.
Yes. I felt it. Yeah. I definitely felt it. I felt a lot more like not a buzz, but I felt I had a lot more endurance. Granted, this was honestly one of the hardest workouts I've done in a while, but I definitely felt like, especially I think near the end, I felt like I'd really kind of tapped into this like a lot more, let's say, endurance, if you will. Yeah. So I definitely, I've never tried a pre-workout, but I thought it was really cool. And I thank you so much, and Darryl, for sharing that with me. It was really interesting.
Oh, I'm glad. So we kind of had that just before, so it's kind of going to give us that like instant buzz, which was great.
Yes.
And then we did a bit of a warm up. So I remember we just went through and a lot of kind of quad and leg focus work. So we did a lot of stretching out and kind of opening up the hips and and really elongating across the mats, which was needed.
So neat. I thought that in itself could have been our workout. I'm just joking.
And the cat cow, love the cat cow, like you were saying, with yoga. So good. Just because obviously sat at a desk all day, really good to open up the back before we work out. But we started with a run. So similar to the HYROX event, the first station is a run and everybody gets really giddy and goes off at full speed. But it was good. So we did 400 meters on the runner.
Yes.
And we were chatting initially and then we both were like, we need to focus.
Yeah. I think you could have probably kept talking, but I was like, yeah, I have to stop now.
Yeah, so we did that. But I think, I mean,
No, it was good. It wasn't, it wasn't. It only took like 4 minutes, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is the thing, it's like bite-sized chunks of speed. Yes. So you can kind of focus on that, get it done, and then it's done. And then after we did the run, we went over and we got the wall ball.
Yes.
And we navigated, obviously it's annoying because the wall ball stations in Pure Gym are always near the pull-up bars. So there's always guys just in the way and you're there just with your ball being like, can you move? Yeah. And
that was so awkward.
You were like, let's wait for him to finish. And I was like, no.
So Cailtin was just she started it. Yeah. I mean, he could have also waited, but anyway, he didn't want to. So there you go.
There you go. All happens. But so I think you were brilliant at the wall balls because I think the
squat
is lower than you imagine. And there's a lot of power that's needed to be able to then release the ball straight up.
Yes.
And in HYROX, if you don't hit the target, it's no rep. So, and you've already got 75 or 100 wall balls to do. So a no rep, you're like,
stop.
Yeah.
Are you serious? That's insane. These wall balls are one of the hardest. I mean, the hardest, I found it probably the easiest out of all of the exercises only because I have very good strength in my, I'm good at squats. I have that muscle sort of there. That's my strength naturally. But man, that's a lot. We only did 30. Is that right? We did 30. And I had DOMs for probably about 5 days after.
Shocks the system.
Yeah, totally.
You were really going for it because usually you would do maybe 10 and the break, but you were like, I'm going to do all of them.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Keep going. And in HYROX, that's the last station. So you can see the finish line and you've just got to get your wall balls done. And you've got, they have judges and the judge will be telling you how many more you have. But the music's really loud and the crowd's going. So you're like, how many more? I can't hear you. And in Amsterdam, I was like, do you speak English? And they were like, no, get someone else. Literally dying.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. But we did it.
We did it. Yes.
So we did our wall balls and then we went back onto the run. So I think this was great for you to see because it's the constant moving and but the variety also I think keeps it interesting.
100%. And that was another 400 meter run.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did you find the second run, having done it once?
I think it was easier because I knew that it was only 3 to 4 minutes. And actually I was like, oh, if I actually just run quicker, it gets done with more easily and faster. Yeah, so I was because normally I'll just be I'll kind of lazy run. I'll be I'll just jog, But then when you're I just want this to be over, then I was I'm going to put I could increase my speed somehow and then reach the kind of 400 meter mark quicker. So that was good. Yeah.
And this is you start to see, I guess, the mental side of it coming out because it's this whole sort of realization that actually it's a mental block and physically I can do it and I can push myself and I've done it once. I feel actually that I'm capable, push myself. And that is I find that so inspiring.
Powerful.
Yeah, powerful. It's you versus you. You did all that yourself. I was just just there next to you.
Oh, you were patient. You like definitely hit your 400 before me, but you just kept running, and I was like,
I was like, we're in it together, like,
that was nice. Thank you, Caitlin.
Oh, that's okay. So then we went over and we did the ski.
Yes. Oh, you were amazing. Like, I showed my husband the footage, and I was like, this is how amazing. Like, you were giving it, like, and you were just, wow. So that was hard. I think the skiing was the hardest for me.
I agree. So in HYROX, you do the first 1 kilometer run, and then the first station is the ski erg, and you ski 1,000 meters, and that's when the race is lost to a large majority of people, because you just go too quick out the gate, and it's exhausting, kind of continuously doing it. But I think that we found, didn't we, like having kind of breaking up that calorie target. So, it was 30 calories, but we were like, I think it was 10 calories that we thought we'd have as like milestones. And we worked on like just like technique and just kind of making sure that you were getting the most out of your movements and using like, getting, the energy and stuff. But I think when you had that goal, your mindset shifted. I could see it. It was like, I'm going to hit that. I'm going to, and it didn't really matter time. It was just like making sure that you got there, which you did.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, and I think what was interesting with that is I've never actually worked out in an exercise whereby it's measured by the calories that you actually count. So it's not actually like 30 pull downs. It's actually like, because 1 calorie, what I found, it took me like 6 maybe to get to like 1. So 6 pull down to get to 1 calorie. So
it does. It takes so much longer. Yeah. And it's so frustrating. But again, this is the challenge. You're like, why is it not going up? Like, and you're like, but
then you actually see it change. You're like, oh, okay, it's working. I was like, the machine is broken, but no, it's actually.
Oh, and then I think it was maybe around this time where we made that friend of the girl. Do you remember we met the girl who was like, what are you doing?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and this happens a lot. Like, people are like, what exercise are you doing? Or are you training for HYROX? Because they recognize the HYROX exercises. But she sounded like she may want to.
She does. Yeah. Did she connect with you? I know she wanted to connect with you on.
Yeah, she did.
Yes,
yeah.
Amazing. Oh, well, there you go. So new workout buddy, potentially.
New workout buddy, new listener for the podcast.
Yeah. Love it. Amazing. And then, because then after that, then we did 1 more 400 run, right?
We did, yes. Yeah, we did. And that was, I think we knew that was the final one of the circuit. So I think that was, again, where the speed went up.
Yes.
The arms were going.
Less chatty. I was less chatty. I was just But then you're absolutely right, 100%. And then we went, and then what did we move on to then after?
So the final exercise was the burpee broad jumps.
Difficult.
And so they're difficult because, so you've got, the broad jump and the burpee, stepping in, bringing the feet all the way out. And we committed, we kept going. We did all 30. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I'm so proud of us. And I think after that, I was like, okay, I think we're done. But we could have, do you know what? Now that I've done it once, I honestly feel like I could actually do 2 because I know what I'm getting into. Do you know what I mean? And so thank you for building my confidence in that way, because that's really what you did. And thank you. Yeah, really.
Yeah. I think that's all it is. It is confidence. It's not ability. It's not your ability. You can do it, but it's just having someone there to help and support you. And I find the same. Like, I really value my coach's support because it gives me the confidence and belief to try new things.
Does George work out directly with you, like in person, or is it all done more virtually?
It's mostly virtually, but he is incredible at, like, he's always checking in. Like, we have a weekly call. He'll like write on the program, like comments about things. He made a joke. He was like, I'll probably speak to you more than I do my girlfriend. He's like constantly involved and wanting to, make sure that you're getting the most out of the program. He calls himself like a HYROX OG. Like, he's been around a while. He's very experienced. So
that's amazing.
And it's really, I guess, there's a lot of noise in the fitness world. There's a lot of false information. So I think I really value knowing that he knows what he's talking about and he's very experienced. So I definitely recommend recommend for anyone just to sort of, see what he's about, see if it could be of interest, especially for the new year. New program, new challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely going to link all of his socials in the show notes. And so definitely people should reach out if they're interested. I think with this beginner workout, hopefully that's a nice taster for some people to try. And if they feel like, again, they want a little bit more attention or support, then maybe consider a coach, such as George or even Caitlin, right? You could reach out to you directly too.
Me. Yeah.
Love me. And so what advice would you offer anyone who's listening, who's like, okay, I do want to do it, but I'm just nervous. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I feel trepidatious. Maybe they've never even been to a gym before. Like, what would you advise them?
I would advise to go with somebody. So whether that's a friend and you can, give it a go together. We are in January, so it is prime time for everybody wanting to get on the gym hype. So I'd recommend going during off-peak hours so that you can sort of get familiar with the equipment and it's less busy. And also, if you don't want to go into a gym, there are so many incredible like home workouts that you can do now. There's so much online, even for free. Or I know the coaches that I work with, they can offer home alternatives as well to fit in with your schedule. So I think knowing that that's available is really good. And then I do think having a coach is brilliant because it's very specific and personalized to you.
Yes.
So you might go in and follow a plan that you downloaded online and then it puts you off because you can't do it, but it's just not suited to you and who you are and like what your fitness is. So knowing that someone's going to be there every step of the way is really comforting, I think. And also just making it fun. I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah. It's supposed to be fun. So, if going to a gym is not fun for you, but dancing is or swimming is, then let's start with that.
Yes, love that. And then build the sort of the energy and the fitness, if you will.
Exactly.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. And for anyone who's struggling with their mental or physical health, what are 3 practical steps that they can start to take today?
Yeah, so I think I'll share these, I guess, just from my personal experience. And I think one of the things that's really helped me is journaling. So I will journal how I'm feeling on a particular day. It basically allows me to kind of process my thoughts and actually figure out if they're rational thoughts or if they're emotional, but also it helps me to spot patterns. And that in itself becomes a power because I start to kind of understand the pattern, but also the trigger. And so I can kind of then, that really helps with my self-awareness. So I definitely think journaling is a good one. Another one, I think incorporating some sort of exercise in your daily life, it can just be a walk outside, will help massively. And I think the third one is trying to not have your phone. Maybe it's like no screen time, whether it could be anything, like even just no screen time after 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, or it could be, no screen time before work, just like a window that's realistic, but allows you back that time to be present and to actually tune in with how you're feeling versus before you've even thought about how you're feeling, you're going onto social media, you're scrolling, you're comparing all this. So yeah, they're my 3 biggest tips that I'd say have worked for me. I love
it. That's amazing. Thank you, Caitlin, for being so generous with all of your advice. Well, we are moving on to the final segment of the podcast, which is the EnvisionAir questionnaire. And this is a fun feature of the podcast where we ask guests to look back towards their past, reflect on their present, and look towards their future. So regarding your past or looking back towards your past, what is one piece of advice you would offer to your 15-year-old self? I know we talked about the inner child. It is essentially probably an exercise similar to inner child's work. Yeah.
Probably the biggest piece of advice I would give is just to stop worrying about what could happen and just sort of enjoy being a child and enjoy the curiosity and enjoy, I guess, things are inevitably going to go wrong. But I think embracing that and learning from it and not being so scared of, I guess, the repercussions because you just don't know. And I think it's like skiing. So I used to, when I was younger, I just kind of go full throttle down a mountain and, if I fell, whatever, I would just jump back up again. But as I've got older, like it's harder. Like I think I'm nervous about falling over. I'm a little bit more cautious and stuff, but I want to try and get back to some of that younger, I guess, energy of just kind of, quest for life, really.
Yeah. And not being as scared. I think life sometimes it's like that external programming that comes in that says life is scary, life is this, life is that. And yeah, it's obviously legitimate to have some of these concerns, but I think a lot of it is that sort of external programming, which maybe isn't as necessary as we need. Okay, so reflecting into your present, if you could seek advice from anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
I think if I could seek advice from anyone, actually, I think this is so you know this person. I don't know if you know who I'm going to say.
No. Oh, well, okay. I have some guesses, but no, I'm going to let you answer.
So I'm going to say Sarah Jane. So, Sarah Jane McCausland, she's a guest on this podcast.
Yes.
She is the person that I have always gone to for advice. And she is so knowledgeable, but she also is just so brilliant at, I guess, she's so clever, but she's so down to earth, and she kind of takes that knowledge and she makes it very approachable. And I feel like very at ease with her. Like, if I don't understand something, I don't feel inferior. She helps me, but she's also very spiritual, and she's got a lot of intuition. And I think I really value and I really lean on that to sometimes help me and to get guidance. So I think she'd probably be that person. She always has been. And I just feel like actually people closest to home are usually the ones all along who could help you. Yeah.
I think that's so beautiful. And I can't wait for her to hear this. She's going to be so touched by that. That's so beautiful. Really, that is so nice. I mean, honestly, like that is so sweet. Do you know what? On my, I did a solo episode on my birthday where I talked about like the 3 lessons I learned in my 20s because people had said, oh, you'd never actually, in any of your solo episodes, you'd never done the EnvisionAir questionnaire. So I was like, oh, okay, so I'll do it. Right. And on that same question, I was like, who would I want to talk to? And I was like, Oprah, of course, like love her. She's amazing. And I just think it's so sweet that out of all of the, I don't even know, 8 billion people that are on the planet, that you chose like Sarah as one of your very good friends. That's really beautiful. So yeah, well done. Makes me feel like I should have chosen one of my best friends. No, but it's really nice, really nice. Okay, so looking forward, what's one goal you would like to achieve in the next 5 years that you want to share with us?
So a major goal I have that I'm kind of working through at the moment is I have an interest. So I've always been interested in like retreats. There's a lot of really interesting retreats out there that will help you in all various different areas. So a lot of them, whether that's like a yoga retreat or, maybe it's kind of time away to learn a new skill, or I guess the thing that I struggle with is they're all so expensive and they're quite inaccessible to young millennials. When I was doing my research, my MSc, I did it with the NHS and looking at staff burnout for a particular trust, and looking at the irony that the people in healthcare don't prioritize their own health. And there's a lot of stigma about seeking help if you're a medical health professional. I guess what I'm getting at is like there's an inaccessibility problem of some of the practical side of like how do you deal with mental health and how do you support someone's health and well-being on a daily basis. And I guess there are brilliant tools out there, but there's also a problem with people accessing them. And so I think I would like to play a part in solving this issue in some capacity. So whether that's like a physical space people can come to and it's accessible in the sense that it's affordable and they take tools away from it that are going to help them, whether there's like a fitness arm to it, which again is priced at a point. So like I've got siblings at university who are very stressed, and I've always say to them, like, use my gym membership, like here's some workouts, because I really want them to be able to benefit from it. So I definitely think there's an opportunity there. I'm still figuring out like how to tie it all together. And, different aspects to it, going into organizations and sharing some of the research that I've found on burnout and things, I think could be really interesting as well. But I do think there's a big opportunity now. A lot of people are looking more into the mental side of fitness and the benefits of that, and the idea of, a mental health gym, not just a physical health gym. Like, what does that look like? And when should you go and access it? So that's quite an interesting, I guess, question that I'm going to be thinking about in the next 5 years.
I love it.
And I'd love to, next 5 years, it might be that I'm starting a family of my own. And, that could be something that I guess want to think how I feed into all of this.
Yes.
Because I'll be a different person, and I'll be, I guess, wanting to inspire that particular, that person to kind of think in this way. So what does that look like? And is there an educational standpoint of going into schools and things, and just making sure that what I went through as a young child, anything I can do to help others to avoid that as well.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. I mean, there's definitely a space for that too. Like the fitness component with, children and teenagers, the mental health aspect as well. Really fascinating. I'm excited to see what comes from this. Really good.
Thank you. Yeah, me too.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Cailtin, for being part of the EnvisionAir podcast. You were so generous and vulnerable, and we really appreciate you sharing your story, and also like overcoming your story of resilience and how CrossFit really helped your mental health, but also your physical health. So your overall well-being. And I'm excited. And I think we're hopefully going to do another CrossFit workout together, and we can compare where I've come to from where the starting point, which hopefully will be a lot better by the time we do the second workout. But thank you so much again, Cailtin. Now, for those who want to connect directly with you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, so I'll share my my email and my Instagram. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, always happy to help, or you want to be directed to any particular coach or kind of professional in the network. I've got quite a few people I know. So yeah, feel free to reach out.
Caitlin's a good connector. Thank you. Well, I'll of course put all of her information in the show notes. And thank you again, Cailtin, for being so generous with everything today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Lots of love.
Bye.